Hello, boy. What's going on?
Dad, Zayn is gone.
What do you mean he's gone?
I don't know. It happened so fast. I still hear his scream in my head.
You don't expect a creature you've raised and trained for years to turn on you? It wasn't just an accident. That orca was sending a message. Zayn was one of the best. If this could happen to him, it could happen to anyone. On the morning of March 12, 2018, a trusted marine park trainer's life was cut short in the most horrifying way imaginable by the very creature he had spent years building a bond with. Nalani, a 30-foot orca, turned against him in a deadly and unprovoked attack. This is the terrifying last moments of Zayne Marston. Zayne Marston's career with orcas had always been marked by respect, dedication, and trust. But on this fateful day, that trust would be shattered in a shocking and deadly encounter. Before we dig deeper into this terrifying story, make sure to subscribe, like, and share this video to stay updated on more real-life animal attack stories. Your support helps us bring these important stories to light. Wait, let's go back to the beginning where everything started from. SeaLand Marine Park has long been a symbol of marine entertainment. Known for its spectacular orca performances, it attracts millions of visitors each year who come to witness the majestic orcas in action. But behind the dazzling performances, there lies a complex relationship between the orcas and their trainers, one built on years of trust, understanding, and, at times, deep emotional bonds. Zayne Marston, a passionate and dedicated marine life expert, had always dreamed of working with orcas. For years, Zayn honed his skills and developed a reputation for his calm demeanor and patient approach to training. He understood the power of these magnificent creatures, and over time, he formed a special connection with Nalani, a 30-foot orca who had been part of SeaLand for over a decade. Zayn's training style was unique. He believed in positive reinforcement, patience, and building mutual respect with the orcas. He spent hours learning their behaviors, understanding their body language, and working closely with them to create performances that were not only spectacular, but respectful of the animal's natural instincts. Zayn's approach made him a beloved figure among his colleagues, and Nalani in particular responded well to his gentle yet firm guidance. They were a team, a perfect partnership that seemed unbreakable. But despite the outward harmony, a darker reality lurked beneath the surface. The stress of captivity, the pressure to perform, and the lack of freedom were beginning to take a toll on Nalani. Trainers had started to notice subtle changes in her behavior, moments of unpredictability that hinted at the internal struggles she was facing. While Zayn remained unwavering in his commitment to his work, a growing unease was starting to settle over those who worked closely with the orcas. Though Zayn believed in the bond he shared with Nalani, the relationship between captive orcas and their trainers is never without risk. Orcas, known for their intelligence and emotional depth, can sometimes react in ways that are unpredictable, and no amount of training or trust can change their nature. Unfortunately, Zayn's bond with Nalani would be tested in ways no one could have foreseen. Nalani, a majestic orca with piercing eyes, had been in SeaLand's care for over 15 years. From the moment she entered the park, she quickly became one of the most impressive and powerful orcas to ever perform for the crowds. Her size alone was awe-inspiring, 30 feet long and weighing over 12,000 pounds. But it wasn't just her physical power that made her stand out. Nalani was known for her extraordinary intelligence, her ability to learn complex routines, and her striking beauty. She was a true performer, capturing the hearts of audiences with each breathtaking display. Over the years, Nalani developed a strong and unique bond with her trainers, none more so than Zayne Marston. Zayn had been working with Nalani for nearly a decade, training her for various shows and routines. They shared a deep connection, one based on trust and mutual respect. Nalani, in her own way, seemed to understand Zayn's commands, responding to him with precision, whether it was during a performance or a simple training session. Zayn often spoke of the language they had developed together, a silent understanding that allowed them to perform their routines flawlessly. But like all orcas, Nalani was not just a performer, she was a complex creature with her own emotions, instincts, and needs. Over time, subtle signs began to emerge that hinted at Nalani's growing frustration with her captivity. While some trainers felt she was simply a wild animal trying to express her natural instincts, others started to worry that the stress of performing day after day was beginning to take a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. There had been moments in recent months when Nalani's behavior became unpredictable. She was more prone to sudden, erratic movements during training sessions, and at times her reactions to commands seemed delayed or misinterpreted. Zayn, ever the professional, reassured his colleagues that Nalani was simply adjusting to new routines and performances. But for some, it felt as though there was an underlying tension, a sense that Nalani was beginning to struggle with her role at the park. While no one could have predicted the deadly turn of events that was about to unfold, these signs of stress were becoming hard to ignore. Nalani, a creature of immense power and intelligence, was growing increasingly difficult to manage, and the pressure of captivity seemed to weigh heavily on her. It was a sunny morning, just another day of training and performances at SeaLand. The usual hustle and bustle of the park filled the air, but there was something off about Nalani that morning. Her movements, usually so graceful, seemed a bit sharper, more deliberate, as though she was preparing for something, though no one could have known what was coming. Zayne Marston, as always, was in charge of the training session that morning. The team had been working on a new sequence for an upcoming show, something that would highlight Nalani's strength and agility. It was a routine they had practiced many times before. Zayn had entered the large water pool, wearing his usual calm expression, prepared to guide Nalani through another day of training. He spoke to her in his familiar, soothing voice, giving her gentle commands as he had countless times before. There was no sign that anything would go wrong. At first, the session seemed to go smoothly. Nalani performed her usual maneuvers, twirls, jumps, and synchronized movements that had become part of her repertoire. Zayn was calm, his focus entirely on the task at hand. But as time passed, something started to shift. Nalani's movements grew more erratic, her once synchronized routines now interrupted by sudden, sharp movements. It was as though she wasn't entirely present, her attention wavering. As Zayn commanded Nalani to complete another jump, something was different this time. Nalani hesitated for a brief moment, before leaping out of the water with more force than necessary. Zayn, ever observant, caught the shift in her energy. His calm demeanor began to waver slightly as he noticed that Nalani wasn't responding in the usual way. There was an edge to her behavior now, a tension that could not be ignored. The air around the pool grew thick with unease. Zayn continued to speak to Nalani, trying to calm her, but her movements were growing more unpredictable with each passing second. Her eyes, once calm and connected with Zayn, now appeared distant and unfocused. The familiar bond they shared seemed to be slipping away, replaced by something darker, something that neither Zayn nor anyone else could control. At first, the training seemed to go well, but as time passed, the tension in the water began to escalate. Nalani's movements grew more erratic. What was once a calm and peaceful interaction turned into something dangerously unpredictable. Zayn attempted to regain control of the session, calling out commands, but Nalani's erratic behavior continued to spiral. The once smooth coordination was now replaced by sharp, disjointed movements. For a moment, it felt as if Nalani was not only disregarding Zayn's instructions, but also actively challenging him. The unspoken connection between trainer and Orca was being tested in ways no one could have foreseen. The other trainers who were nearby had begun to notice the shift in Nalani's behavior. Some exchanged worried glances, sensing the same tension in the air that Zayn was beginning to feel. In the months leading up to this day, Nalani had shown subtle signs of distress, moments when she seemed distant or frustrated. There were whispers among the trainers about her mood swings, her unpredictability during certain routines. But Zayn remained firm in his belief that their bond was strong enough to weather any storm. But this time, something was different. In the past few months, several trainers had expressed concerns about Nalani's mood swings. Some had noticed moments of frustration during training sessions. Others suspected that Nalani's behavior was a response to the mounting pressure of performing day after day. But no one could have predicted that the tension would erupt in the way it did on that fateful morning. As Zayn prepared to give another command, his heart raced. He could feel the shift in the air. The once confident and trusting relationship between them had begun to unravel. Nalani was no longer responding as she had before. There was an energy in the water now, something wild and untamed, and Zayn was about to learn just how dangerous it could become. Without warning, Nalani launched herself toward Zayn, her massive body cutting through the water with terrifying speed. The force of her movement was unlike anything anyone had seen before. Zayn, caught off guard, tried to react quickly, but the sheer power of Nalani's attack left him struggling to stay afloat. His arms flailed in the water, but the orca's grip on him was unrelenting. The water around them erupted as Nalani thrashed violently, each movement sending waves crashing through the pool. The attack was unprovoked, raw, and terrifying. Zayn's body was tossed like a rag doll as Nalani relentlessly pulled him deeper into the water, her immense strength overwhelming him. The trainers on the sidelines watched in horror, frozen for a moment as they struggled to comprehend what was happening. This was no longer a training session, it was a nightmare unfolding in real time. A trainer said, "I couldn't believe it. Zayn and Nalani always had this special bond. It was like something snapped. One minute they were performing together, and the next everything changed. It was like Nalani wasn't the same animal anymore." The chaos around the pool intensified as trainers rushed to the edge, shouting frantically. They grabbed hold of poles, emergency equipment, anything they could find. But Nalani's powerful movements made it impossible to reach Zayn in time. His body was tossed and pulled under the water again and again, the tension mounting with every passing second. The frantic cries of the trainers filled the air, but they were powerless in the face of Nalani's fury. Zayn's struggle became more desperate, his movements weakening as the moments dragged on. The orca's grip tightened, and there was no way for anyone to intervene quickly enough. It was as if the very connection Zayn had spent years building with Nalani had dissolved in a flash of violence. The frantic shouts of the trainers were a blur, their hands reaching out to help, but all they could do was watch as Zayn was dragged further into the water. Panic set in as one trainer yelled for help. "Get the ropes! Get the ropes!" But the water churned around Nalani, who seemed completely disconnected from the animal they had known for so long. She showed no signs of relenting, her movements becoming increasingly erratic. The chaos continued as the trainers rushed to rescue Zayn. One trainer dove into the water, desperately trying to get close enough to reach him, but the violent movements of the orca made it almost impossible to get a hold of anything. The other trainers threw ropes, hoping to grab Zayn before it was too late. But the clock was ticking, and with every passing second, hope dwindled. It felt like hours, but in reality, it was only minutes. The sound of the water crashing, Zayn's cries for help, the frantic calls to get him out, everything became a blur of fear and confusion. After the attack, Zayn was rushed to the hospital, but tragically, he did not survive his injuries. The news of his death sent shockwaves throughout the marine park and beyond. The park was immediately shut down for an investigation, as authorities and experts sought to understand what had led to the unthinkable. The incident sparked a series of questions about the safety protocols at SeaLand, and more importantly, the emotional and psychological well-being of the orcas in captivity. In the aftermath of the attack, the community was left reeling. Zayn, a beloved figure at the park, had dedicated his life to his work with orcas, and now he was gone. His colleagues, who had witnessed the attack firsthand, were shaken to their core, grappling with the horrific loss of a friend and fellow trainer. The park had been his second home, and his tragic end left a void that could never be filled. The investigation that followed was exhaustive. Authorities, along with marine biologists and animal behavior experts, meticulously examined the area where the attack occurred, looking for any clues that could explain Nalani's sudden shift in behavior. Was there a trigger, a moment that set off the violent reaction? Or was this simply the tragic result of years of captivity taking its toll on an already stressed animal? The investigation also looked into the safety protocols, questioning how the attack could have happened despite the strict training routines in place. The incident prompted a re-examination of how orcas were managed, trained, and cared for, leading to broader conversations about the ethics of keeping such powerful creatures in captivity. While the exact cause of Nalani's aggression may never be fully understood, experts believe the attack was a result of mounting stress, both physical and emotional. The toll captivity takes on orcas is well documented, with many studies showing how the confined space, lack of stimulation, and constant pressure to perform can lead to erratic behaviors. Orcas, known for their advanced intelligence, often experience psychological stress in captivity, which can manifest in unpredictable and sometimes violent ways. Marine biologists said that orcas, by nature, are social and highly intelligent animals. In the wild, they travel vast distances, hunt in pods, and engage in complex social interactions. When kept in captivity, they're deprived of these natural behaviors, which can cause a range of psychological issues. It's not uncommon for orcas to show signs of frustration, aggression, and even self-harm. While the attack on Zayn was tragic, it's not an isolated incident. It's part of a larger conversation about the ethical treatment of these animals in marine parks. The attack had also led to a public outcry, with animal rights activists demanding changes in how orcas are treated in captivity. Many saw Nalani's violent outburst as a tragic result of the trauma these animals endure. Some argued that orcas, like Zayn, are victims in this equation, forced to live in environments that suppress their natural instincts and behaviors. As news of Zayn's death spread, tributes began pouring in from all corners of the world. His colleagues, devastated by the loss of their friend, left heartfelt messages honoring his memory and his dedication to the orcas. Memorials were held in his honor, and Zayn's legacy as a passionate animal trainer was celebrated by all who knew him. But as the community mourned, the questions surrounding the incident remained. Was Zayn's tragic death simply a freak accident, or was it a consequence of the systemic issues related to orca captivity? And perhaps most importantly, what would this mean for the future of SeaLand and its treatment of the orcas it continues to hold in captivity? In the aftermath of the attack, Nalani was removed from the performance shows. The orca who had once captivated audiences with her strength and grace was now isolated in a holding pool, far from the spotlight. But questions began to arise, questions that had been lingering in the background for years. Was Nalani simply reacting to the years of stress and confinement? Was this attack the result of years of forced performances, isolation, and frustration? The once celebrated orca, known for her incredible talent, was now seen in a different light. The public outcry grew as animal rights groups began to speak out, demanding justice not just for Zayn, but for Nalani and all the orcas kept in captivity. As the world mourned Zayn's tragic death, the question of whether animals like Nalani should be forced to perform for entertainment became impossible to ignore. Though Nalani's life in captivity had been filled with praise for her performances and the adoration of park visitors, the darkness behind the scenes began to unravel. The pressure to perform, the confinement of her small pool, the lack of stimulation, all of it had taken a toll on her mental and emotional state. Was Nalani truly an ambassador of the ocean, as the park had claimed? Or was she a victim of a system that pushed her to the breaking point? As Nalani languished in the holding pool, alone and agitated, the public debate about her treatment intensified. Activists and animal rights groups took to the streets, organizing protests outside SeaWorld. Signs demanding the release of captive orcas became a common sight, as a growing movement called for an end to the practice of keeping orcas in captivity for human entertainment. The controversy surrounding Nalani's attack only fueled the public's demand for change. As more details about the conditions in marine parks came to light, people began to question whether the captivity of these highly intelligent animals was ethical at all. Some wondered how long it would take before other orcas, pushed to their limits, might react the same way Nalani had. Marine mammal scientist Dr. Naomi Rose has long warned that orcas are known to have complex social structures in the wild. In captivity, they are isolated, denied the ability to form natural bonds with their pods. This can lead to severe psychological stress. What we're seeing with Nalani is not an isolated incident. There are numerous cases where orcas in captivity have shown signs of aggression, frustration, and depression. It's a tragedy, but it's also a consequence of the unnatural and restrictive environments they are forced to endure. Though SeaLand and other marine parks insisted that they were doing everything they could to provide a safe and comfortable environment for their orcas, the public sentiment was shifting. Calls for the release of orcas back into the wild, or at the very least, into larger, more natural enclosures, became louder. people began to wonder if the only way to truly honor these magnificent animals was to set them free. As the investigation into Zayn's death continued, and the debate about orca captivity raged on, it became clear that the incident had changed everything. The days of unquestioning admiration for SeaLand's orca shows were fading fast, replaced by a growing recognition that the very system that had made Nalani a star might have also played a role in her violent outburst. Zayne Marston's tragic death serves as a reminder of the inherent dangers of keeping such powerful and intelligent creatures in captivity. His bond with Nalani was a proof to the deep connections that can form between humans and animals. But his life was tragically cut short, and in his death, a broader message emerged. These creatures, despite their incredible intelligence and strength, are not meant to live in captivity. His legacy lives on as a symbol for those who believe that animals like Nalani deserve more than a life behind glass and bars. As the world continues to grapple with the ethics of captivity, Zayn's story shines a light on the urgency of change. His passing was not just a loss for the marine park community, but for everyone who believes that animals deserve to live freely, as they were meant to. The story of Nalani, the orca who took Zayn's life, is a painful reminder of the consequences of captivity, both for the animals and the people who work with them. It is a call to action, urging us all to rethink how we view animals in entertainment and to push for a future where creatures like orcas are given the freedom they deserve. If you believe in animal rights and the freedom of captive orcas, support organizations working toward their release. Like, subscribe, and share this video to spread awareness. Let's honor Zayn's memory by working toward a world where orcas and all animals are free from the confines of captivity. Thanks for watching.